What if one day you woke up, stretched your creaky joints, sipped your morning coffee, and suddenly realized something chilling? The people you've known for years, your chatty neighbor who used to wave every morning, your best friend from that old job you loved, even your own kids who once couldn't stop calling, were slipping away. Not because of some explosive argument where harsh words were thrown like daggers, nor because of a dramatic falling out that left you both red-faced and fuming, but simply because of you. It's a tough pill to swallow, isn't it? Picture this. You're sitting by the phone, waiting for it to buzz with a familiar voice, but it stays silent. You walk past the park where you used to meet friends, and now it's just you and the pigeons. After 70, this quiet drift happens to more seniors than you'd ever imagine, and it's not just a random fluke, it's a pattern. Maybe you've felt it already. The conversations that once flowed like a river now trickle to awkward small talk. The visits that used to fill your weekends dwindle to a rare pop-in, and the silence grows so loud it's almost deafening. But why does this happen? And here's the real question that might keep you up at night. Can you actually do something to stop it before it's too late? Before you're left with nothing but echoes of the life you used to have? Today, we're going to dig deep into this strange, creeping problem that sneaks up on so many elderly folks. We're not just skimming the surface here, we're peeling back every layer, exposing the surprising reasons why people start pulling away from you after you hit 70. Reasons that might be hiding in plain sight, things you're doing without even clocking it. We'll explore how the world shifts its gaze when it sees a senior, how those stereotypes stick like glue and change everything. We'll dive into what's happening inside you as the years pile up, those subtle changes in your energy, your habits, your way of being that you might not even notice, but others definitely do. And we'll unpack the little everyday behaviors, those tiny tics and quirks that could be pushing people away without you ever meaning to. But it's not all doom and gloom, far from it. We're also going to flip this whole thing on its head and talk about how to fix it, how to rebuild those bridges, how to bring back the warmth of connection with practical, no-nonsense steps you can start today. I'm asking you to stick with me until the very end, because by the time we're done, you won't just understand why this happens. You'll have a clear, actionable plan to turn it around and keep your life buzzing with the people who matter most. And trust me, there's one twist waiting for you at the finish line, a little zinger you won't see coming, something that'll flip your perspective and make you rethink everything you thought you knew about growing older. After 70, something odd and unsettling starts to happen, something you might not catch right away because it's so gradual, like the way dusk creeps in before you realize the day's gone. It's not just your body that feels the weight of those extra years. The way people look at you, talk to you, even think about you, shifts in ways that can feel downright jarring. Society's got this unspoken rule etched into its DNA. When you hit a certain age, say, when the candle's on your cake, start needing a fire permit. You're no longer just getting older. You're officially old. Not the wise, respected kind of old you might have pictured when you were a kid dreaming of silver hair and rocking chairs, but old in a way that feels like a demotion, like you've crossed some invisible line, where you're suddenly less relevant, less vital, less you. Think about the last time you were out and about. Maybe a younger cashier at the grocery store started speaking to you in that slow, loud voice, like you're hard of hearing or can't process words anymore, even though you're perfectly sharp. Or perhaps a neighbor who used to stop for a quick chat about the weather now just nods and hurries past, eyes glued to their phone. Even your own family might treat you differently. Your daughter might skip the juicy details of her latest work. Drama because she assumes you're too frail or out of touch to care. It's not always intentional, not some grand conspiracy to sideline you. It's just how the world's wired, and it stings all the same. This shift isn't because you've failed at life or let yourself go. It's about stereotypes, those lazy mental shortcuts people lean on without even thinking. They see your gray hair, your slower shuffle as you cross the street, maybe the way you fumble with your wallet at the checkout, and their brains flip a switch. This person's done. They've checked out of the game. It's like they slap a label on you. Elderly, handle with care, and from then on, that's all they see. Never mind that you've got decades of stories, a wicked sense of humor, or a mind that's still quick enough to win at trivia night. They don't look past the surface. Take my Uncle Joe, for instance. At 72, he could still fix a car engine blindfolded, but his buddies stopped inviting him to poker night because they figured he'd rather nap than bluff. It's not fair, but it's real. Once that old label sticks, people stop treating you like a full person and start avoiding you, not because they hate you or wish you ill, but because they don't know what to say anymore. They assume you're stuck in 1985 reminiscing about rotary phones, or that you're too tired to keep up with their whirlwind lives. They don't mean to ghost you, they just don't know how to bridge the gap. The crazy part? You might not even clock this slow fade until one day you realize your calendar's empty. Your mailbox is just bills, and you're left scratching your head, wondering where everyone went. Now, let's turn that mirror around and take a good hard look at yourself. Not to judge, but to understand what's really going on beneath the surface as you age. It's not just the world playing tricks on you. You're changing too in ways that sneak up so quietly you might not even notice until someone points it out, or until they stop showing up. Aging does tricky, subtle things to your mind, your body, your whole way of being, and after 70, those shifts can hit like a freight train if you're not paying attention. Maybe you don't feel it day to day. After all, you're still you. Still waking up with the same quirks and coffee habits, but your energy isn't what it used to be. Remember how you could dance all night at a wedding in your 40s or chase the grandkids around the yard without breaking a sweat? Now, a long chat at the kitchen table might leave you ready for a nap. Conversations that once lit you up like a firecracker, debating politics or swapping wild stories, might feel more like a chore, something that drains you instead of charging you up. So you start saying no more often. No to that dinner invite because the drive's too far. No to the family picnic because the noise is too much. No to the phone call because you'd rather just sit with your thoughts. You think you're just pacing yourself, taking care of yourself, and you are. But to everyone else, it looks like you're pulling away, retreating into a shell they can't crack. Then there's the memory stuff, that little glitch that comes with the territory of getting older, and it's more common than you might think. It's totally normal to blank on a name, say calling your grandson Tim when his name's Tom, or to lose your train of thought mid-story, leaving you fumbling for the punchline. But if it happens a lot, if you're pausing too long or circling back to the same point, others might start to fidget, not because they're cruel or impatient, but because they don't know how to handle it gracefully. Picture this. You're telling your daughter about that fishing trip from '92, the one with the big trout, and halfway through you realize you've told her this exact tale 3 times this month. She smiles, nods, maybe even laughs politely, but inside she's checking out, her mind drifting to her grocery list or her next meeting. Over time, those little moments stack up and people stop reaching out, not because they don't love you, but because keeping up starts feeling like work. My friend Clara, she's 74, and she noticed her book club stopped texting her reminders. She thought they'd disbanded. Turns out they just got tired of her repeating the same opinions about Jane Austen. It's not that you're boring or broken or any less valuable. It's just that aging tweaks how you show up in the world, and not everyone's got the patience or know-how to roll with those changes. Here's a big one that nobody likes to talk about. A trap so easy to fall into you might not even realize you're stuck until it's too late. Complaining. After 70, life doesn't exactly roll out the red carpet. Your knees ache when it rains. The doctor's office becomes your second home with its sterile smells and endless forms. And don't get me started on those bills that seem to multiply faster than rabbits. It's frustrating, exhausting, downright unfair sometimes, and it's only natural to want to let it out, to vent to someone who will listen. Maybe you call up your son and grumble about how the pharmacy messed up your prescription again, or you sit with a friend over tea and list off every twinge in your back, every price hike at the grocery store. You're not trying to be a downer. You're just sharing your day, unloading the weight of it all, hoping for a little sympathy or at least a, "yeah, that sucks," in return. But here's the catch. If every conversation turns into a laundry list of what's wrong, a nonstop parade of gripes and groans, people start tuning out, their eyes glazing over, even as they nod along. It's not that they don't care about you or your struggles, they just don't know how to fix it, and that helplessness makes them squirm. Think about the last time you hung out with someone who couldn't stop talking about the bad stuff. Maybe a coworker who ranted about their boss for an hour straight, or a cousin who turned every family gathering into a pity party about their leaky roof. It's draining, right? You might have sat there, sipping your drink, nodding like a bobblehead, but inside, you were counting the minutes until you could escape. Now imagine that's how others start seeing you, not as the warm, witty person they used to know, but as a walking storm cloud they can't dodge fast enough. It's not fair. Life is harder sometimes, and you've earned the right to say so after all you've been through. But fair or not, it's how it plays out. Take my neighbor, Mr. Harris. At 71, he'd corner anyone who'd listen to moan about his sciatica or the noisy kids next door. At first, we'd all sympathize. Poor guy, tough break. But after months of it, folks started crossing the street when they saw him coming. The more you lean into that negativity, the more people associate you with it. Like you're the human equivalent of a rainy day they'd rather avoid. And nobody wants to feel like a punching bag for life's problems, even if they love you to pieces. They'll just find excuses to stay away instead. Let's talk about something that's changed the game more than we ever saw coming: technology. If you're over 70, chances are you're not glued to a smartphone 24/7 like the younger crowd, those kids with their thumbs flying over screens like it's second nature. Maybe you've got a trusty flip phone that still works just fine for calls, or you've dipped a toe into the digital world with an old desktop that takes 5 minutes to boot up. You might even have a Facebook account you check once a month, scrolling through blurry photos of your grandkids' birthday parties, but you're not posting selfies or liking every status under the sun. And that's okay. You don't need to be a tech wizard to live a good life. Except in today's world, it's not really okay. The planet's moved online faster than you can say dial-up, and if you're not there, you're practically invisible, a ghost in a world that's buzzing with texts, tweets, and video calls. Friends don't pick up the phone anymore. They shoot a quick, "How you doing?" message instead. Your grandkids aren't running over to tell you about their soccer games. They're posting highlight reels on Instagram for the whole world to see. If you're not in that digital loop, you're out of the conversation entirely, left holding a phone that doesn't ring. It's not just about missing out on funny cat videos or those annoying chain emails your cousin used to forward. This goes deeper. People assume that if you're not tech-savvy, you're out of touch with everything that matters to them. They figure you don't get the latest political mess because you're not scrolling X, or you can't relate to their dating woes because you're not swiping on apps. My Aunt Linda, 73, used to wonder why her nieces stopped updating her on their lives. She didn't realize they'd moved all their chatter to a group chat she wasn't in because she still had a landline. They don't mean to exclude you, but they stop reaching out because they think you won't understand their world. And the longer you stay off that digital grid, the wider that gap stretches, like a canyon growing between you and everyone else. It's not even about age. It's about access. If you're not plugged in, you're living in a parallel universe, and they're not crossing over to yours anymore because it feels too far, too foreign, too much effort when they've got a dozen other people pinging them online. This one's a sneaky little devil, a change so subtle it might slip right past you until the damage is done. You stop asking questions. Rewind to your younger days, say your 30s or 40s, and think about how you used to be with people. You'd sit down with a friend over coffee and pepper them with curiosity. How's that new job treating you? What happened with that guy you were seeing? Did you catch that wild game last night? You were hungry to know their stories, to dig into their lives like a detective piecing together a case. But after 70, that spark of curiosity can dim, flicker out even, and you might not even realize it's gone. Maybe you're tired, those long days of juggling work and kids are behind you, and now you just want to coast a little. Or maybe you figure your own experiences, decades of ups and downs, triumphs and flops, are more worth sharing now, a treasure trove you've earned the right to unpack. Whatever the reason, if you stop asking about them, they stop telling you anything, and that's when the thread starts to unravel. People love talking about themselves. It's baked into our DNA, and if you're not giving them that opening, they'll find someone else who does, someone who makes them feel seen and heard. It's not that you don't care about their lives. You're not some cold, selfish grump sitting there twirling your mustache. Life's just long, and you've got a lifetime of your own tales to tell. That time you backpacked across Europe, on a whim, or the day you met your spouse at that diner with the terrible coffee. So you lean into those stories, spinning them out over dinner or a phone call, and it feels good to relive them, to pass them on. But if every chat becomes you, talking at them instead of with them, if you're the only one holding the mic, they start to feel like an audience instead of a friend. My pal George, 76, used to dominate every barbecue with his war stories from the 60s, and we'd all listen, rapt, for a while. But after a few years, folks stopped sitting near him. They'd heard it all, and he never asked about their kids or jobs. Over time, they drifted to the other side of the yard, swapping updates with each other instead. It's a small shift, this drop in curiosity, but it snowballs fast. Before you know it, they're not just avoiding your stories, they're avoiding you, seeking out people who make them feel like they matter too. Now we're wading into deeper waters, the kind that's murky and emotional and hits you right in the gut. After 70, people don't just see you as old, they start seeing you as temporary, a ticking clock they can't ignore. Mortality rears its head, that big, scary shadow we all try to outrun, and it changes how they act around you. They know you won't be here forever. Nobody will, sure, but at 70, the truth feels closer, more real, more pressing. Every wrinkle on your face, every time you wince getting up from a chair, it's a little reminder to them that time's running out, and that freaks them out more than they'll ever admit. Your kids might cut their visits short, not because they're too busy with soccer practice or deadlines, but because seeing you age makes them face a loss they're not ready for. Friends might call less often, not because they found better company, but because they don't want to get too attached, don't want to feel that ache when you're gone. It's not about you screwing up or being unlovable. It's about them dodging the pain, protecting their hearts by keeping you at arm's length. This one's brutal because you can't control it, can't flip a switch and make them stop feeling. That fear, it's human nature, messy and raw. Take my cousin Mike. He adored his grandma, spent every Sunday with her until she hit 75. Then he started making excuses. Work's crazy, the car's acting up, I'll catch you next week. Truth was, her shaky hands and raspy voice scared him silly. He couldn't handle the thought of losing her, so he pulled back. The irony's thick enough to choke on. By stepping away, they miss out on the time they've still got with you, the laughs, the wisdom, the quiet moments that mean everything. It's a messed up cycle. They avoid you to shield themselves, and you're left lonelier than ever, wondering why the house feels so empty. And it's not like they're sitting there plotting to ditch you. It's instinct, a knee-jerk reaction to the big what if hanging over their heads. You're still the same person they loved, but that love comes with a shadow now, and not everyone's brave enough to face it. So, how do you stop this slow slide into isolation, this drift that's pulling everyone away? It's not hopeless. You've got more power than you think to turn it around, and it starts with flipping the script on how they see you. Stay active, not to prove you're still 25, but to show you're still in the game, still kicking. Take a walk around the block every morning, even if it's just a wave at the mailman. Let them see you moving, living, breathing. Or pick up something simple like gardening. digging in the dirt, planting tomatoes, watching them grow. It's not about the harvest, it's about the signal it sends. I'm here, I'm engaged. Join a club if you can, maybe a seniors group, or a bingo night at the community center. Nothing fancy, just a spot where people see you laughing, chatting, being you. My buddy Sal, 72, started a walking group with a few neighbors, and suddenly he's the guy everyone calls for plans. It's not about defying age, it's about radiating energy, because people gravitate to that, not a number on your driver's license. Show them you're not fading, and they'll stop treating you like you are. Next up, ditch the complaint habit. It's a tough one to break, but it's a game changer. Life's got its rough edges, sure. Your hip might creak like an old door, or the cable company might overcharge you again, but don't let that be your soundtrack. Instead, share the good stuff, the little wins that light you up. Tell your niece about the hilarious squirrel you saw stealing birdseed, or brag to your buddy about finally nailing that pie recipe. It doesn't have to be big, just positive, something that pulls them in instead of pushing them out. Text your ally here too, don't shy away from it. You don't need to be a genius, just learn the basics. Send a text to your grandson. Hey, how'd that test go? Set up a video call with your old pal across town. Fumble through it, laugh at the glitches, show you're trying. My mom, 71, learned to send emojis, and now she's the queen of heart eyes with her sisters. It's small, but it keeps her in the loop. And start asking questions again. Really dig in. What's stressing you out at work? What's the best thing that happened this week? Listen hard, let them spill, make them feel heard. It's like glue for relationships, sticking you back. Together, one chat at a time. Finally, don't be afraid to call out the elephant in the room, those fears they're hiding from. If you sense someone's pulling back because of your age, say it straight. Hey, I'm still me. I'm not going anywhere yet. Let's grab a coffee and catch up. It's bold, maybe a little awkward, but it cuts through the nonsense. My friend Ruth did this with her son. He'd been dodging her for months, and she just laid it out. I know I'm old, but I'm not dead. Stop treating me like a museum piece. They laughed, cried, and now he's over every Sunday. People need that nudge sometimes, that reminder you're still here, still fighting for them. You've got the tools to pull them back: activity, positivity, tech, curiosity, honesty. So use them. Don't wait for them to figure it out. Take the reins and rewrite the story before it's too late. So, there you have it, the whole messy, eye-opening truth laid bare. After 70, people start drifting away for a bunch of reasons that tangle together like a ball of yarn, society's stereotypes that paint you as done, the way you change, without even noticing, your energy dipping, your memory fuzzing, the little habits like complaining that wear them down, the tech gap that leaves you on the outside looking in, the way you stop asking questions and turn talks one-sided, and the heavy stuff, their fear of losing you that makes them run before they have to say goodbye. But here's the good news. It's not a life sentence, not some inevitable fade to black. You can turn it around with a few smart moves, staying active to show you're still alive and kicking, flipping to positive vibes that draw them in, jumping into tech to close that digital divide, asking questions to keep them talking, and facing their fears head-on with a blunt, loving nudge. You're not just some old relic gathering dust. You're still you, still full of fire, and you've got time to prove it to everyone who's started to forget. And here's that twist I promised, the one that'll stick with you long after you click away. This isn't just about them avoiding you. It's about what you lose if they do. Connection isn't some nice-to-have bonus. It's the fuel that keeps you going. Studies back this up. Loneliness after 70 hits harder than smoking a pack a day or carrying extra weight. It's a silent killer that dulls your mind, saps your joy, shortens your years. So fixing this isn't just about keeping your friends close or filling your calendar. It's about keeping you sharp, happy, alive. Think about that for a second. Who's one person you could reach out to today? Your daughter, who's been too busy? That old pal you haven't called in months? What's stopping you? pride, fear, a rusty phone number. The clock's ticking, sure, but it's not too late. Not yet. You've got the map now. Where you go next is up to you.